We're gonna do a bit of
Morning. So, yeah, Coops, mate, you are a regular. Thank you.
soldier.
Woo.
How are we getting this now? Are we fitting?
We used to have it before.
Is that it? That's it. How you doing, Lawrence 87? Sorry, forgive me.
Yes.
It's gonna be a shocker.
Oh, happy anniversary, someone said already. That's nice.
Hold on, I'm trying to.
Hey,
I'm trying to see if I can get you on this speaker.
Yeah.
All right. Oh,
I feel like I don't know what's happening with the space that we used to have it.
That's cool. Well, as long as we're in, isn't it?
No, I'm laughing.
We're in.
oh,
Everybody's half.
that's fine. Can you hear us clearly?
Yeah. Can you put your volume up a bit?
We don't need that then.
That's it.
That's fine. That's fine.
That's it.
And that's a whole different thing now. You know, I feel under pressure now.
No, don't.
It's your day. You need to be on.
It's like one of you is enough pressure. Two of you, Lord have mercy.
We just woke up, so we're not on form.
Really?
All right then. That means we're gonna get a
Well,
slide.
we're nearly due to go to bed, so let's just like work it.
Oh,
It's 6
all right.
o'clock.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we end that
It's our
old. We end that. Yeah, it's our anniversary.
Take an early night. It's your anniversary. Take an early night.
It's still early.
Still early.
I'm slipping.
Yeah.
Listen, people, this is crazy. This is crazy. And
This
it's
is
only
a long time coming, man.
we're gonna do a bit of history. We're gonna have a laugh, and we're gonna hear my cup in the background. Oh, let me take this
We
back.
should sit the other way around because, like,
Why? It
you
looks
know,
like-
you
it
know,
looks
you know,
like
you
a
know, like,
vertical ganging
no,
up.
you know, like, Juanita's my daughter and
Okay.
Curtis is your son. But right now, I'm sitting underneath Curtis and your.
Whoa!
Yeah, I feel like I could put my two hands like this and say, "We are home."
Yeah,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah, we got back home. Already people are saying happy anniversary to you
Thank you
guys,
guys. Thank you so
much.
much. Thank you so much.
which is
Thank
nice.
you so
Thank you,
much.
Michelle.
Thanks, Mish.
What time is it there?
6.
6 o'clock in the evening.
Oh, 6 p.m.
Six
Okay.
in the
The sun has set, and we're into a brand new week.
Yeah.
Wow.
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 It always feels strange hearing that.
Morning.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. In Adventist speak.
Yes. It's a new week. Got it.
Oh, you did it that time.
Yeah. That's on Living From Here.
Okay.
So I could just see it. Yeah.
That's it.
We can try.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's better.
So listen, man. This is honestly, this is more about you guys. Honestly, I'm getting ready to have a few laughs and to have a few emotional moments. Yvonne, you're looking younger
Yeah.
for some strange reason.
She look good, eh? She look good, dance.
Oh, you look younger.
Yes.
Um,
We got to get to Australia quick.
what's to pass by quickly?
You know what? It's been too long already.
Yeah.
Listen, man.
Been too long already.
You know-
Now flight, just before they completely shut everything down, flights were going so cheap, but nobody could travel because they thought by the time they get here, they're going to be in quarantine for 14 days, and then they have to return back to their
To
their
wherever they come
countries,
from.
yeah.
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 So,
yeah.
And
Good
now
on
everything's
that.
grounded. So
Hold on, let me
Yeah.
put the camera more on this one here, man. No,
That's fine.
leave it on you, babe. Leave it on you.
You ready now?
Yeah. So just to be clear, you all are in Australia. You immigrated there a few years back.
7 years.
7 years.
7
This
years.
is
7 years, and that's not something that black people do. But you've done
Well,
it.
you'd say that, but we have met so many expats who've been here like 30, 40 years.
you believe,
Wow.
believe me.
From the Caribbean islands,
What?
from England,
From
I mean,
Africa, from
yeah, there is so much, and there's actually a large West Indian community that we get together quite
No.
regularly.
Yeah.
What's happening, and we eat together. Yeah,
You can just pull your pants down. It's all good.
literally.
Yeah.
You know,
Undo your
I'm
button.
sure some party.
What's this? What's this?
No, they do. They do.
That means it's sweet.
In fact, a couple of weeks ago, when it was a couple of months ago, was it
About
beginning
a month
of
ago,
March? Beginning of March, when they had the T20 over here,
The cricket,
women's
World
T20.
Cricket.
They had West Indies playing England, and Ed and I were flag bearers for the West Indies team.
Yeah, there was a whole West
Wow.
Indies.
Yeah,
all
there
of
was
us
a
as
whole-
expats.
yeah, there were-
were like,
Yeah.
I'm so surprised by that.
So you got to walk around the stadium and stuff with the flags.
on the
Yes.
on the pitch.
Yeah.
On the field.
They never televised that. Kept looking for it on the replay, but never couldn't see it again. And you know, the worst thing was that my role was to then leave the flag and then escort. You know, when they bring out the children with all the players. Well, my job was to escort all the children back to their parents, and to keep them in a line to make sure they were okay. As soon as it was all finished and they finished the national anthems, the kids just ran off.
Then Picnic run. Yvonne is like, wait.
I started to run after them, and I thought, no, this is on national television. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this.
Let them go.
I was like, wait.
Hold on.
Let's take it back. Okay.
All right.
Is it quarantine? We're going quarantine.
Yeah,
first.
we have to.
Okay.
Give us a lowdown on your quarantine life.
For Ed, it's hard. He's the extrovert. Man, him and Ria, this is painful for them. You know, they want people around them 24/7. Yeah, but for me, it's okay. It's all right. It's okay because I get to go out and see people when I go to work sometimes. So it's not so bad for me. Not that we're totally isolated.
She gets day passes.
I
You
get
know?
I get day
She gets
release.
a work pass.
I
Day
get
release.
release to go out and meet people. But yeah, so.
But it's productive.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
The funny thing is, we developed a bad habit that turned into a good habit, and now we're able to actually make it work during this period and then enjoy our company. And the bad habit is just having each of our independent silos. You know what I mean? Ria likes her space, I like my space, Yvonne likes her space.
Yeah.
And then we just, you know, and we've been in that space for a little while, but now that we're in quarantine, it actually works for us because now we more easily inhabit each other's space.
Yeah.
Ria will come into, like the other morning, Ria came, Yvonne was working out, she had to teach. And then Ria came into the bedroom, just jumped into the bed, and the two of us just watched TV in bed while we ate breakfast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or I'll go into Ria's room under duress from Ria because her bed is so comfortable. I don't know why we gave this girl the most comfortable bed. You know what I mean? But then I'll just go in there and lie down, or Yvonne will, and the three of us sometimes will lie down. Ria's got a little projector, and we'll watch a film on her wall.
Yeah.
And then we'll go. You know what I mean? So
if we have to see Spartacus just one more time, that child is going to go.
Spartacus, what, the series or
No, like the old time.
The one that lasts for like 4
Kirk Douglas.
No, Burt Lancaster. No, not Burt Lancaster.
Oh my goodness.
Not Charlton Heston.
No.
Kirk Douglas.
Kirk Douglas.
Yeah.
Bad boy Kirk Douglas. You know what I mean? So quarantine life ain't too bad. We're all productive.
Yeah.
We're all productive in our space.
Ria's back at school now.
On Wednesday.
Ria's back at school next Wednesday. Well, when I say virtual school, she's back.
Okay.
She's been on a 2.5 week break.
Yes.
But they're making space in her school for year 11 and 12s. So if year 11 and 12s want to come in, you can come in.
They can do that.
Give them the library. It will still be online learning. But at least they got the use of the library. They got the use of all the resources that way. So it's quarantine life has been all right. You know what I mean? It hasn't been strenuous. We're grateful.
I have to say that Australia's taken severe measures to lock down everything early. So at the moment, we've only got 73 deaths in the entire continent.
Oh, wow.
While we say, oh, that's not a lot, there are only 25 million people in the whole of Australia.
Wow.
So that has affected many people in terms of unemployment and people's businesses and people's mental health, to be honest with you, which is the next big crisis I guess we'll go into once we've left quarantine.
Yeah. Just to ask, are your schools, I know you don't run on the same semester system as us, but are you closed for a good couple of months? Is virtual school for a good couple of months? Because we're not back till September.
Yeah, at least, yeah. It's going to be at least for...
They're going to be phasing school back in, face-to-face interaction with teachers, bit by bit.
But they still have to work out what that looks like.
They're working out how they're going to do that.
Yeah, they haven't figured out what it exactly looks like, but they're working towards it.
Okay.
The school year here runs from January to December, and consists of 4 terms. So she has just finished term 1, and she'll be entering term 2 now. Yeah.
Okay.
Is she the same year as Charlie?
No.
Year below.
Yeah.
They're at year 11, and they finish school here at the end of year 12.
Okay. So she's still got a bit of time. So it's not interrupting like GCSEs or anything at this stage.
No.
Oh, that's good.
They have a different system than GCSEs. Yeah, it's called HSC.
Oh, I remember that from Home and Away. You're doing the HSCs. How could I forget that? Home and Away and Neighbours. Jane's doing her HSCs.
Home and Away, watch out. For me, it's like, I remember that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that was...
When you come, we'll take you to the Home and Away beach.
You're joking, it's real.
Yeah.
Yes.
What was it called again? What was it called?
No, we'll drive there. We'll drive there.
Oh, look, you like that? We're planning this already.
Yeah,
Ferry's nicer.
Are you going to take us to Ramsey Street as well?
No, that's in Melbourne.
But
that's in another state. But hey.
But if you're staying long enough, we'll fly up to Melbourne and we'll go there, man.
Yeah. Fly to Melbourne. I forget. It's a continent, you know.
It's only an hour flight, hour and a half to Melbourne.
Flight. It's about a 13-hour drive or more.
Yeah. But we can fly down there, man.
If we don't stop.
Fly cheap.
Yeah.
Fly to Ramsey Street.
Just walk up to that cul-de-sac.
Come.
Okay, we're there. I remember, I'm going to take it back. I mentioned this before, but I have to mention it again.
How far are you taking it back?
I'm going back to 1988.
Oh, that's better sound.
1988.
Fulham Church.
Mercy.
Okay.
Is that around that time?
1988. No, I wasn't in church then.
Yeah.
So that would have been about
1991.
About 1990.
Yeah, 1990.
Okay.
1990.
Yeah, 90.
No, not 89. 1990. Yeah.
And our churches were tied together via a pastor or whatever system they had.
Yeah.
And look at that question. Is there anywhere we can watch about your moving experience, Pastor?
No, we've never. I think the only way you can do that is probably go back across my Instagram. Go back from 93. I've been documenting it from then.
Yeah.
But in terms of actually moving and doing immigration and do all that kind of thing, I never really posted it. From then. But from the time we got to Australia, I've been documenting it in one way or another through actually on Insta and on Facebook. So if you go back through my social and my pictures, if we're friends, then you'll find it there.
So going back to 91-ish, I remember sitting on a piano because our churches were tied together. So every now and again we'd have to share programs. And I heard you preach, and I found out that you were getting married to Yvonne. I remember the announcement.
Definitely, then. Yeah. That was
I didn't really know people then, and I was wearing. I'm going back on it because it's so profound for me. I remember the clothes I was wearing because although my dad was quite much bigger than me, poverty was the norm, right? I was wearing his clothes, and he was and we would share church clothes. You don't believe me, do you?
I do, because I've seen the pictures. And I wouldn't have checked for you then.
We show, when I'm going to get dressed in the morning on Sabbath morning.
Yeah. It's pre-prepared on the bed.
No, it wasn't. No, it was ironed in the morning, but we went to the same place in the wardrobe. So we're like, what are you wearing today? We'll be like, and those were the days when I knew Eddie and Yvonne.
I just want to say first,
Yeah, go on.
poverty is relative, right?
It was bad.
So I just think that your dad just wanted you to look the same. He said, that ain't poverty.
I think so.
One, it was bad.
Dad was twinning, man. And you was too, man. You loved it, man.
He was twinning, that's all.
And yeah, that's fine. And that is where we met you guys. How did you guys meet? Because when I met you, you just got engaged, pretty much.
Yeah.
I know there's always two versions to this kind of, you know.
There's only one version.
You give your version.
There's only.
Let's hear what you say.
Come on.
All right. With the official version, yeah. And so you trace this one,
Sure.
yeah. I had come back to church. I was at sports day. I knew Rosie Vernage. Remember Rosie Vernage?
Yeah.
Rosie Vernage and I have been friends since we were teenagers.
Mm.
We are walking back from sports day, and we're walking back from sports day. We hear these two cars blaze past us. Beep, 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 beep. You know what I mean? Yvonne and her best friend draw up, and
So you wrong.
I don't know them. Rosie knows them.
Yeah, because we were on the Sports Federation.
It was
together.
on the Sports Federation.
Yeah, so that's how we were.
We said, oh, we're just going to the train station. Do you want a lift? I got in your car. No, I got in.
No, you might have got in our friend.
I got in the friend's car. You know, I got in the friend's car. Rosie got in hers. We pulled up at the station, got out. She came out to say bye to Rosie. I looked at her. She looked at me, and then she loved me one time. No.
Yeah. That's the version. That's the version.
And then we just said hi, and then because it was the Big Six, I saw her the next week.
Big Six.
Yes.
I saw her the next week at a badminton competition. Or
it was a basketball.
A basketball competition.
Down in Brixton.
Down at Brixton. And because I saw her, I'd just come back into the church. I didn't know anyone. And because I saw her, sat with her friends, started talking. And then that's when we got to know each other. And then we ended up, there was a crew of us who all come back at the church at the time. Paul Hunt, Gary Harrison, Reggie, Lanny. There's a whole crew of us. We all seem to come back at church at the same time. Yeah. You know what I mean? Broderick.
Oh yes. Meshach's mum.
Meshach's mum.
Wow.
Yeah. Yvonne.
Yeah, Yvonne.
Yes.
All of us all came back at round about the same time within the year. And because we was kind of all came from the same space before, we all just became kindred spirits. Yeah. And we started hanging out, and that's how we got to know each other and be hanging out. You know what I mean? It was like, honestly, it was a beautiful little crew of us that used to just hang out together.
There's parts of the story missing. I think you need to keep going. Come on.
No, really, that was...
So...
Yeah, continue.
So, Yvonne's friend liked me, and...
Hope you're not watching.
And Yvonne's friend liked me, and Yvonne liked my best friend. So Yvonne and I became co-conspirator best friends, trying to set each other up.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's how it was. You know what I mean? We literally became co-conspirators. And the deep thing with that was, like, I liked Yvonne's friend, but not in that way. My friend liked Yvonne, but not in that way.
But we all remained friends.
All of us, and none of us never entered.
We didn't have that conversation.
Yeah, none of us ever entertained that conversation. Like, so yeah, Yvonne, I hear that you like me. Like, no. So that we could all keep our friendships. You know what I mean? And then, like, that kind of fizzled off in terms of trying to set up. But Yvonne and I had become such good friends.
Yeah.
And it literally happened that I was over by, Yvonne was raised by a gran. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, somebody said, Yvonne, you can take over. Yeah. Go on,
I'm enjoying listening to you.
Is it the official story? Am I telling the official?
So far, we are on track. So far, I'm in agreement.
All right.
Okay.
Okay then. So,
Ed, is it possible? Can your volume be raised a little bit more? Are you at the max?
Yeah. I'll turn it up a bit more.
Can you hear?
Yeah.
Can you hear us? Is that
Yeah.
better?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it literally happened that I'm at Yvonne's house. Yvonne was raised by her gran. And we're over by Yvonne's house, and Yvonne was in the kitchen.
It was snowing.
It was a snowing
day.
thing. So actually,
and so there was 3 of you over at
Yeah,
the house.
yeah.
Tim and
Yeah.
there was 3 of you.
So
over.
yeah, there was a little crew of us over, and Yvonne came in. I was sitting down on the sofa. We was all just watching TV. Literally, Yvonne came in from the dining room. I looked at Yvonne. Yvonne looked at me. I looked at Yvonne. I smiled. She smiled. And we were literally dating. That was it.
Wow.
Yeah. You know, semi move just.
Just a look.
After that, it wasn't as tight as that because you had the moves then, but then you had to do make quite a few steps in order to get that official.
Yeah,
Come on.
No.
Come on.
Right.
Come on. This is the...
Yvonne went upstairs, and I went upstairs after her. So I swag it out.
No,
and I went, and I was like,
have a private conversation.
So like, I kind of swag it out, and I was like, really? And then Yvonne looked at me, and she was like, really? Yeah. So I was like, really? And she was like, yeah. And that was it, And then I had to go ask her dad for permission to go out with her. I'm like, well, I'm a big man, She was like, listen, if you want to talk to me, you need to go out with dad's permission. You know what I mean? I'm like 27 at that time. I'm about 27 at that time.
You're just sweating thinking about it.
I'm sweating thinking pressure, you know what I mean?
Pressure.
I'm telling you. And then he gave permission, and we dated for about 1.5 years. We dated for about a 1.5 years, and
then he didn't give permission.
And then, I asked Yvonne to marry me, and she's like, "Yeah, of course." I mean, like, what else are we gonna do?
Just got back from camp meeting.
We'd literally got back from camp meeting. We were sitting in a parents' house upstairs after having something to eat, and we just got talking, and I said, look, I'm looking 10 years down into the future of my life, and you're there. I'm looking 20 years down into the future of my life, and as far as I can look, I don't see a picture where you're not there. So let's marry. Let's start from now. And so she was like, yeah, and we was excited. Went downstairs, talked to her dad, because me and the dad really got along by this time, and went downstairs. Mr. Somerville, really want to. We were 20.
Hang on a second. You already know how old he is. I was a child bride. I was like, that old at the time.
I had to wait for her.
I was 27 years younger than I am now.
Well done.
Went downstairs and, excited, said to Mr. Somerville, you know that I really love your daughter, and I want to, I've asked her to marry me, and I want to ask for your blessing to for us to be married. And it literally went like this. Like, no. And so we was like, that is so funny. And then it was like, hold on, you serious? And we're like, yeah. He said, no. And then he threw me out the house.
What?
He threw me out the house. And then the family had a meeting that night. And Yvonne called me in tears. I mean, they called everyone, grandparents, parents, everybody, neighbor. They called everybody. They called friend.
The commissioner.
The mayor.
The mayor.
It was like a family day of fellowship. And they literally called the whole family together. And the whole family just said, you and this guy have to end this relationship. Like,
wow.
No, you know what I mean? And so you know, the dad, it's a matriarchal family. So grand number one was like, no, sir. Dad was like, hell no, sir. You know, but the only up for me was one of her grandfathers, Grandfather Davis.
Do you remember you played at Granddad's funeral for me, Curtis?
Years ago, yes.
Years ago.
93.
Yeah.
Do I remember that? I don't remember.
Yeah, you were the organist. Yeah. So like, listen, it was a straight Uncle Phil throw out. Believe me, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Boy.
And so when the family, it was just Uncle Davis, Grandpa Davis. He was like, no, he's a nice guy. The dad's thing was like, look, Eddie, you're a nice guy. You're an intelligent guy. You're very articulate, but you ain't got nothing that you can offer my daughter.
Wow, interesting.
Because I had just come from my other life, and I was literally just starting again.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and so Yvonne, when Yvonne met me, she saw clearly the change that had taken place in my heart. And she saw clearly that my life was going to catch up with the change that had taken place in my heart.
Wow.
The dad weren't close enough for me to see that. And so, you know, at that time, and so he was adamant, but we were both clear. There's two things that I know in life, three things I know beyond all doubt. Number one, that the Lord chose Treese to be my wife. Totally clear. Number two, that my life is called to ministry. Number three, that Rhea is my pick-me. You know? Beyond that, I'm confused about everything else. You know,
fair enough.
Things I know. And so literally I was going back to community college at the time. I was going back to community college to do secondary school equivalents.
Yeah.
I was just doing a whole thing, you know, my whole life was getting back on track. Then Rhea, Yvonne, used to go by her dad's house. We used to go every Sunday by her parents' house to eat. Yeah. And Yvonne was like, you're coming by this house still. And I'm like, your dad don't want me in the house. She said, you are coming by this house. And so we literally went from this thing of like, hi, Mr. Somerville. Hey, Eddie, how you doing? To hi, Mr. Somerville.
It was a big test.
It was literal. And it went on for months.
If he didn't pass the test, he wouldn't be sitting here now.
Yeah.
Simple. Could have been somebody else in that chair right now. If you
They should have given you help. Should have given you help. It just wouldn't be the same. Your mental health and everything. You know what I mean?
Everything. You know. But you know, Yvonne was the one who really stuck in there and just said, "Nah, Dad, this is the one. I'm clear on it. This is the one." And like, then the dad finally came around. And like now, you know, I call him Pops when I introduce him. I don't introduce him as my father-in-law. Like, this is my dad. You know what I mean? Because he's been more of a father to me in our 27 years of marriage than my father's been to me in my 55 years of life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, and I'll do the same with my child. Same with my child.
Rhea is worried.
No, she don't need to worry.
She don't need to worry.
Yeah, I mean.
No, she don't need to worry. Need to worry. The guys need to worry, and I just.
You need that.
You need that edge. I was saying to Kirk the other day, I was in the park and Charlie was sitting with me, and I went round again, and I saw this brother approach her. He forgot about social distancing. All I knew that my mouth was like a foghorn going, "Oi, move off, move off." And when I got closer to him, I realized that I said to him, "Brother, you're old enough. She could be yours." I said, "This is not right." I said, "Step off now. She could be your child." And I realized it was such a militance. Charlie looked at me and was like, "Mummy," I said, "I can't help it." I said, "This is a she-bear." And that brother, it always starts with a conversation. You come in there with a belly. And he, as my mum would say, he can't even buy you a pin. You know what I mean? So I think it's needed. What Yvonne's dad did wasn't wrong, but I love the fact that you said Yvonne was close enough to see your heart. He was further away, but he's caught up now. He was doing what a dad would do.
I remember Ria's.
And sorry, just before that, not he was doing what Dad was doing, but Ed, he also stuck with it. He stuck through it. Court evenings every week. He turned up. He was polite. He was just. I mean, he did. I mean, you could see it. And all the time, the rest of us were in the background because my sister was dating a guy at the same time, and my dad did the same to her, to this other guy.
It didn't last. A week card.
Yeah.
It didn't last.
but that is how we.
You know,
that is how we sort the real men for our children a lot of the time. You know, I'm not gonna. And I'm not doing this for fun. I'm doing this because this is a matter of life and death here. I'm sorting those boys out.
And I could see with Dad. Dad was like, "No, you don't know the amount that I've invested in this child. You can't just roll up in here with nothing in your hand. You know what I mean? With your like Gregory Isaacs. You know, financially I'm a pauper, but when it comes to loving, I'm all right. Loving no go get something. You know what I mean?
Listen.
You know what I mean? Go get something. Go get something. And so for me, I was in the process of getting it. You know what I mean? Let me tell you about this girl here, man.
Oh.
When we were dating, yeah, Curtis.
Come on.
And I want to do this with every man.
Yeah.
When we were dating, and I wasn't working yet, but I was putting my life back in order. We would go to concerts together. It was everybody knew we were dating. Oh, Eddie's dating Yvonne Somerville. Yvonne's dating Eddie Hippolyte. We would roll up to the Now, remember, when I met Yvonne, yeah, Yvonne already had her first degree. You know, she was already a professional woman. She was on her 5th car, and she was on her 4th BMW in 5 cars. You know? So that's why her dad was like, "Nah, you can't roll up in here like loving Paul."
Again,
fine. We would roll up concerts, yeah. And she would say, "How much is it to get into the concert?" Say, "I think it's about £5 each." She would go in first while we were in the car, pull out about 20, 30 pounds and put the cash in my hand.
Wow.
He rolled up to the door. I would take the money out of my pocket.
Come on!
You know what I mean? Yeah,
Let's talk about that for a minute.
I ain't gonna have you paying for me. I ain't gonna have you standing up there while I pay for you at the door, because we're from that generation, you know what I mean? And so she would like put the money in my hand, and when it's time for refreshments, we got the money. Now at the end of the night, I would give her all back the money when we got in the car, but she was like, "No, while you're in the process of building yourself, I'm gonna do this so that when we're out, people see that you look after me. They don't need to know what it is that we're doing. They don't need to know how it is that they're growing. But I want people to know that, you know, I want people to see that I am safe in this space here."
Do you know what? Do you know what? Let's talk about this for a minute. This is powerful because Juanita and I have a similar situation. And it's something I think is in the Black community quite a lot, where the women are quite advanced in their academics and where they're at, and Black guys are trailing behind. But what is interesting about this is, and it's frustrating for me to hear sometimes, is that some women want the complete package before they step into something. Yvonne, you did that
Gracefully.
the most gracefully, because I'm all about growth as opposed to the end of the journey. What are you saying, Yvonne? Look what you did.
Well, the thing is, with Ed, I could see beyond the moment that he was in. When I met Ed, Ed read widely. He might not have had any of the degrees at that point, but he read widely. He was able to articulate himself so well, and he was able to hold himself in a conversation amongst any audience that you put him in, even at that stage. And for me, that just said to myself, there's more to him than the fact that he didn't have any money in his pocket at that particular time. And so beyond that, I was drawn not only to the outside, what Ed looked like and what he was, but also what was going on in his heart. And he had such a heart that was not only generous in his heart, but it was, I don't know, I could see this I think it was, I saw a person who was stable in his heart, put it that way.
Yeah.
On in his life or what he'd been through, there was something inside him that I could see that this was worth taking a risk on, because you know, every relationship's a risk.
Yes.
You don't know how it's going to turn out. You always hope for the best. But yeah, it was a good gamble. If I'm allowed. You know, it's taken me all around the world, doing many different things, and you know, and I can't think of anybody who I would have rather spend my life with.
You know, it's funny when my family heard the way Yvonne's family were treating me in terms of no, my figure, they were incensed. They were incensed, you know what I mean? And they kind of carried that for a long time, even after married. And it was deep. Last year, I was in England, and I was with my brother Simon. And Simon was, you know, Ed, you know, I carried a lot of, you know, bitterness, but still kind of felt away. He said, but I'm telling you something, you could have never got where you were today without that woman that you married. You know what I mean? You would never have got where you were. And I'm like, no, I know. Yeah. I do, you know what I mean? And that's not that is not dismissing the grace of God, you know what I mean? Having great mentors. But as a driving force in my life, you know, just pushing, the both of us chasing, you know, celebrating, you know. She said, all right, go get your degree. And we got the degree. She said, all right, go get your master's. And I got the master's. She said, all right, go get your second master's.
There's a healthy competition going on.
There's a healthy competition between the two of us, you know what I mean? You know, so the both of us are chasing PhDs. Yeah. I'm up. I've got 2 books in public.
Oh, PhD.
Yes.
Come on.
Come on. When you get it, then you lift me up, and then you
and you're going to be publishing. You know what I mean?
Go get a room. Go get a room. I got to take a toilet break.
Oh, okay. So that's powerful what you guys are giving us, because someone asked a question just a moment ago. Why is it frustrating for me? And what's frustrating for me is that you miss out. Your eye is on an end product, and you want that end product, but you building it together is building your marriage. And like Yvonne said, why would I be frustrated? Is that you'll miss out on so many great people in your life, all because, for example, when I met Juanita, I had 1 GCSE. That was it. And for years, and because I had such a bad experience in school, I left school, and that was my highest grade was a C. No, when I left school, my highest grade was a D. So all I could ever do was just try and get jobs and work. And Juanita never looked at that and thought, he's not worthy. And she drove me. I'm just about to finish my social work degree now, and I'm in my 40s. And
what about the age?
You know, and I nearly never did it. And it was fear of education that really stopped me from going back to school, and a lot of other issues as well around me. But that wasn't going to be an issue for us not to get together, because like you said, Yvonne, you saw Eddie's heart. And if people know what they need to invest in, it's the heart of the person first. Carry on, sorry.
No, I was going to say, I think a reason why a lot of guys, struggle. Listen, my whole life, Yvonne has made more money than me, double my salary.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, that's never been a problem. Even when her father said, you can't marry my daughter because you don't have nothing to offer my daughter. My thing was, but I'm Eddie Hippolyte.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm like, what? I'm Eddie Hippolyte. You know what I mean? For whatever that meant, in my head, it meant something, because I knew what God had done to my heart.
Yeah.
So I'm Eddie Hippolyte, man. You know what I mean? I'm Eddie Hippolyte. And Yvonne saw that. Yvonne's like, well, yeah, you ain't got two nickels to rub together, but you are Eddie Hippolyte. So You know, so build your hair, build. You know what I mean? And so, and I think what it is, a lot of guys struggle because a lot of guys don't have a deepened sense of what masculinity really is. And masculinity is about being comfortable in the skin that you have, regardless of what your woman has. You know what I mean? And being able to build in your space. Now, it takes also a sensible woman in order to see that and build with a man who doesn't have what she has or may never have what she has. But the man still has ambition. The man still has work ethic. The man still has love. The man still has an empathetic heart. The man still knows how to reach into that part of her heart that makes her heart feel safe. When a man has all that thing, that woman is like, well, I'm on 400,000 a year. I know you ain't never gonna make 400,000. No. I'm saying hypothetically. The woman is on 400,000 a year, and she says, I know you ain't never gonna make 400,000 a year, but all of these other things that you have within the sphere in which you work, I can see that we can build a life together. We can build love together. We can grow, we can have children, and we can put what we have into our children, and we can build an empire through these children. You know what I mean? And I think it takes on both parts, not just a woman looking at a man and like from Yvonne's point of view, highly professional, meeting me coming from a next life, but also a man meeting a woman and she don't have what he has.
Yes.
But he's to see that she's willing to build and journey with her. You know what I mean? And I'm telling you, when I first passed my course to become a residential social worker, Yvonne used to come from where I remember we both lived in North London, and I got that job in South London. Yvonne used to finish work from where she was, or before she went to work where she was, she would drop me all the way to Streatham, to where I worked in a children's home. And then I would do my shifts at the children's home. And then when my shifts were done, where Yvonne was, wherever she was, she would drive from her part of London to come pick me up to take me back to Tottenham. You know what I mean? That was her investment.
Yeah, but number one, I love to drive.
Yeah.
So that was the other thing. I love to drive. I enjoyed
Babe,
the
you just mashed up the whole thing,
sorry,
man. I'm out.
It actually meant that we could have good quality conversations all the way from South London right back.
Yeah.
So that was important. That was important for the growth of our relationship and beginning to understand. You know, talking about investing in Ed's heart. I needed to know what was in his heart, and you can only have those conversations when you actually sit down and have an undivided attention of somebody. And that was during.
Remember our scenic routes?
Yeah, sometimes we would take the scenic route.
We'd take the scenic route. Now, remember.
For Brixton.
I was living in Tottenham. No. I was living in Tottenham.
And I was living in Walthamstow.
And she was living in Walthamstow.
Yes.
So, you know, it's just Ferry Lane.
Yeah.
She would be leaving my space, or I'd be over by hers and driving home. And then she would say, or I would say, you want to take the scenic route? And we're like, yeah. And we'd end up in Brighton.
Hey.
Yeah. End up in Brighton or Cambridge.
And then take the scenic route and then just come home.
Believe
me, it was great times, a great conversation, great depth.
Tell me how your first year, because that's usually the trickiest, or sometimes the best for many, but it's that transition. How was the first, maybe 2 years?
Of marriage?
Yes.
Well, our first 2 years was spent in Jamaica because we got married in the April, then in August, we decided, no, I'm fine. In August, we decided that we were going to, Ed was going to study in Jamaica.
Yeah.
And so, once again, I think my dad said to me, well, it's all right, let him go and you stay. You know what I mean? You stay and work.
Yeah, I mean, you could provide. No, because I remember he said it. He said like, so can't you go and study and Yvonne stay here and work and help you with the fees? And we was like, no.
No, we had to do this together.
Together.
Honestly, the best years, because the first 4 years we spent at West Indies College, now Northern Caribbean University, and there was a level of growth for us, not just as individuals, but as a couple, that I honestly say that we wouldn't have achieved anywhere else. And I think wherever God has placed us, we're supposed to be there for that time of growth in our life.
Yeah. Is it because you were away from what you consider to be normal?
But we was away from everyone, so we had to figure it out for ourselves.
Yes. Yeah.
We had to figure out what marriage was. We had to figure out what love was.
What living in another country
Living in
was.
another country. You know what I mean? And it was good for us because obviously Yvonne had the intention of going there and working, still in cardiology, while I studied. And then Yvonne went up onto campus to pay the school fees. You know? Go on.
No, first of all, when I went there to do cardiology, I thought, so easy. I'll just transfer the skills straight to Jamaica and just work while Ed studies. And of course, I got there, and now we're in Mandeville. Mandeville is in the middle of the island, and of course, the level of cardiology that's needed would have only been done in Kingston. Too far.
Yeah.
We did transportation wasn't the greatest at that time, and so we decided, you know what? Ed said to me, the money that we had raised, I think we had a few concerts before we left.
I remember.
Nigel and Marilyn were going out at the same time, and just the whole experience of, you know, that we need to write a book about. For me, the whole experience of actually leaving was actually quite traumatic for me, because because I tried to put everything in my suitcase. Clearly not a good idea. Everything. And you know, when you put everything, I had to put pots, pans, because although we had barrels coming over, everything that we needed to get up and running, we needed as needed. And so our suitcases were just way overweight, way over. And of course, everybody comes to the airport, you know, the whole family comes to the airport to see us off. And then the suitcases are overweight. Then you have to take them away, and you have to take out all your business and in the airport and try and rearrange and leave. And then, you know, Dad and Nat said they would send some more clothes on a little bit later. And we discovered that's the same thing as what we did when we came here, is that what we arrived with really is all we needed. We had all of these things coming over to follow us, but you survive on what you have. And we learned valuable lessons during that time.
It was good. It was honeymoon. It was honeymoon, but at the same time, it was work because we had to jump just straight into university.
Oh no! So the idea is that when Ed was going to study and I was going to look for work, but of course when I got there, work was too far. Yeah. So Ed said to me, you know, we've got the money. Maybe you go up on campus and you go and pay the fees. And he was getting himself together in this area, and I went up. And honestly, there was such a buzz on the campus that literally I split the money, and I went and enrolled myself. So I paid only. So I paid some. Some for me.
She came back and she was like, Ed, I got something to tell him. I'm like, what, babe? She goes, I enrolled to do business. I'm like, hey, let's go.
Decision. Wow.
We had a brilliant. And then my beautiful nephew, man. We had a brilliant college career. Brilliant. This one here.
Yes.
Graduating class president of the largest academic club, president of the academic club.
Wow.
It's summa cum laude. You know what I mean? I graduated Lord. You know, just thank you, Lord. Yes.
And all in paradise.
Lord, you're good. And all in paradise.
Yeah.
Came back and then came back to chase it here. Well, came back to England, went back to England to chase it in England.
I remember the first house that we lived in, because there's marriage quarters right opposite where West Indies College, I think it's now the School of Dentistry or something like that, but they had marriage quarters right opposite the campus. And during this time, I remember the house that we were living in first, the same door that shut the kitchen, if you pushed it the other way, shut our bedroom door. The first Sabbath afternoon, you know, said, oh, you're going out, there'll be lots of mosquitoes in Jamaica and you need one of those nets and all of the, you know, so we got everything that we needed. Ed went to an AY, the first AY that they had at church, and I decided to myself, no, I'm just going to rest, because we'd been unpacking, we'd been doing all of these things, so I had to rest at home. And while I was there, I saw this rat come into the house, and anyway, we had a cutlass.
Anyway, we had a cutlass.
I had to deal with the rat.
Listen.
All right, so it came back from AY now.
And she's
I
like,
saw half a rat.
it's in her hand, you know. She goes, what's my name? I'm like, Yvonne Hippolyte. She said, no, it's Yvonne Hippolyte Rat Killer. You know? I had to go and take the cutlass from her. I'm like, baby, okay. Let me show you these pictures. So this was our freshman year.
Yeah.
This is the freshman banquet. Our first year.
Who's that?
Our
That's Yvonne.
and Yvonne.
Who you think?
And she, you know,
And
the 90s.
I
And
I can rock that dress now.
Oh, there you go. I can recognize it.
Yes.
our senior year.
There's not much aging on that, you know. It's not much.
You haven't aged much.
Not much.
Just grey like me, but you haven't aged much. Black don't crack. And you've lost the beehive, that's all.
Yeah.
That's all.
That didn't go for quite a while, actually.
A long time,
Yeah,
man. Trust me, man. Yeah, that lasted a long time, man.
Yeah, but I just yeah, we just had such amazing experiences. I remember, in fact, it was Ed used to be director of the Inspirational Choir in Jamaica, and I remember it was, like I said, students, poor students. We didn't, you know, every holiday we borrowed the librarian's car to get around the island to go and visit our family.
Yeah.
And then I remember it was my birthday one year, and Ed and the choir, but for me it was just me going along because I wasn't in the choir. It took me to go and see Pavarotti on the King's Lawns
In Jamaica?
for my birthday.
You can't top that.
I did top it though.
He did.
I did top it 2 years ago. On her birthday, I took her for a romantic evening in Sydney to go hear Public Enemy, man. Fight the power!
That top Pavarotti, mate.
Was a hero to most.
Hey, listen.
He didn't even have to buy
I got the tickets for free.
He met
Flavor
one of
The security guards.
Yeah.
I met their security, the security chief.
on an aeroplane.
And he gave me some complimentaries.
And he said yes.
He gave me some
So we went. Okay.
Guys, before you say any more, right? This is going to end in a second.
All right.
Okay.
So we're going to start another live with you.
All right.
And we want to look at your...
In 10 seconds.
In 10 seconds time, we're going to restart this live. Join us again in literally 10 seconds. And we're going to ask you some questions about your England experience.
Navigating difficult times.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
And anything else we want to talk about.
Yeah.
That we want to hear about. See you in about 10 seconds.
All
Literally.
48 of you, please come back.
Yeah, man. 49 now.
49, come on, and 50. Come on.
See you in a sec. The early morning sniff, son.
Past early morning, no.
What's the time? It's 10 o'clock, innit?
Yes.
Good to see you come back, man. It's a beautiful story, people. These guys are just real on it. Let's get it back. Let's get it back.
England. Because we've got to skip some years. We can't go through the whole 27. But we're going to give you a flyby version. We're not going through the whole 27. We're going to skip some years.
Yeah.
Up to you get back in the UK. Maybe do year 5 to 10.
Yeah. 5 to 10 is
Newbold years.
5 to 10 is Newbold and then early Kennington.
House Kennington. Brixton, Kennington.
Yeah, Brixton, Kennington. Yes, yeah. That was I feel like when we got back to England, I feel like life kind of kicked in a bit more. Kicked in all other way because everything then was about finishing up masters and hoping for employment, you know. Still knowing that and still sensing that I do have a call to ministry, but not knowing what that actually really looks like.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think for both of us, I went straight into the master. I went and studied full-time and worked part-time. Yvonne went back into full-time work and studied part-time.
It was interesting because while we were in Jamaica, we would come back every summer, work to get some money and school fees for the next year. And it's literally, God had provided us with work from the day we landed right through to the day weekend. Before we left.
Yeah.
So you would come back to the UK to work in the summer?
The
go
summer
straight
holidays.
back into cardiology.
I would go into social work, residential social work, and we would literally both work up until the last weekend. My last shift would be a Friday. We would fly on a Sunday, like literally every time. You know, Yvonne had work before we landed. Before we landed, they would say to Yvonne, "Yep, we got work. Make sure as soon as your land come." I would have to wait a couple of days for. I would have to wait maybe about a week for my children, working with children's check to clear. Yeah. And so I would just go do cleaning jobs. I'm like, whatever I just go clean offices, clean toilets until my check cleared, and then get into the children's home. I wouldn't sit down. I wouldn't sit down and wait for it to clear. I'm like, nah, the underneath me kicked in, man. Like, nah, we have to earn. You know. You know.
So you get back. You're doing your masters, and you're back in with families around you. You're in the UK. How was that transition?
It's fine. Well, for me, it was fine.
Yeah. No, for me, no. I think it was fine.
Because we were still living at my grand's at that time. So even when we come back, but our purpose was once again do our masters at that time, and then to make plans for after employment, then get a property,
buy a house, and
do all of those,
and look towards starting a family. But being in England, I mean, it was good. In my mind was about finishing out, as I say, finishing out the masters, and then really I was thinking so much about what London looks like, what London feels like, as far as ministry was concerned. I was developing some things at the time. I was working with Sam Davis, Pastor Sam Davis. He was the London youth director at the time, and so I was his right-hand man. Yeah, it seems like I've done that forever. I was Des Baldos for a while, then I was Sam Davis, then I was with Japheth, then I was with Colin. Wow. I've been blessed that way. And it was during Sam's time that I said, let's run a men's conference. So I planned this men's conference, and we had a really great men's conference. And that was around about 98. And that was the first time I presented how to be a player. Yeah, remember that. The first time I presented how to be a player.
That was at Arsenal football ground, was it?
No, that was over in Northwest London, at that school in Northwest London. And it was, for me, that was phenomenal, because number one, I got that as a vision in bed. Yvonne was lying next to me, and I saw the workshop in the ceiling. I literally saw the workshop in the ceiling. I said, Yvonne, get a pen, get a paper, get a pen, get a paper. She says, all right, I got it. And I said, just write these things down. And I was writing down the questions that I was seeing. You know what I mean? Who and what is a player? Who sets the player's agenda? How does a person become a player? Why does a person become a player? And how to be a player was born. So that period was great for me, because I was doing the residential social work. I was finishing up as far as doing theology was concerned. So I was in the church and in the culture at the same time seamlessly, in terms of studying and working. And so I had a kind of keen sense of where it was, as it were, life was leading me as far as my calling was concerned. And yeah, it was, and then we was fortunate enough to be picked up. I was fortunate enough to be picked up straight out of school in '99.
And we went literally, I think through our pastoral ministry, there hasn't been a church that we've been to that we have not loved.
Yeah.
I know and I can honestly say that is not the same for every pastoral couple.
Yeah.
Even the one that I didn't want to go to.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was one in particular I didn't feel that I needed to go to, and it was King's Cross. You know what I mean? And I'll say it. And it was King's Cross because I didn't feel they needed a pastor. I didn't feel, you know, there wasn't a massive church. The whole membership, you could fit on one side of an A4 paper. And I'm not exaggerating. The whole membership was one side of an A4 paper. They had 5 elders in a church. So I didn't feel that I needed it. And so I thought Sam was the president then, and I fought him to go there. And in the end, I went there. And Yvonne will tell you, you see, I'm talking about it now and I'm starting to feel emotional. After the first Sabbath, I went home and I wept. And I wept that I hadn't gone 2 months earlier, that I'd wasted. Because it was, you know, when you go to a place or you meet a group of people and it is the most comfortable place to fall. And we fell into a church that, and honestly, and I realized it wasn't them that needed me. It was me that needed them. In the plan of God, that what God was doing, he was using King's Cross at the time to teach me my final lessons that I needed to learn in London, that I needed to apply once I got to Australia.
Wow. And it was that far back.
And it was a 5-month crash course, and I had messed up 2 months of the 5 months crash course. So it's like, I'm going to have to get it in 3 months now.
You're going to have to go on a fast track. Can I just speak about the fact that you and your family have had one foot in the culture, and you've been moving, that foot has been moving with the culture, and the other foot in the body? Because we don't usually see it like that. We usually see, you know, man of God, he's solely committed to the body. But you've always had one foot in a culture that's been moving and taking your foot with it, and one foot in the body. How is living between the two different spaces, how has that been for you and your family?
Would you say that the culture was moving with you, or would you say that you were moving, the body was moving with the culture? You made it present for that particular
I feel like, honestly, you see that blessing, Juanita, that was the only way that ministry even made sense to me.
Yeah.
That was the only way that ministry, Christianity, Adventism ever made sense to me. If I didn't have that, you know, because we've worked together on numerous occasions.
Yeah.
And I've seen the places that you've worked in, and you've seen me come into the places. You've brought me into the places that you've worked. And you see how comfortably I sit in those spaces. And it's because I used to sit in the same, I used to be one of the young people that you used to work with, that you work, you know what I mean? I used to sit in the same room with somebody else trying to give me the same type of work or same type of workshop. So for me, that was the only way. Being in the culture, being in the church and working in that space was the only way that church, my ministry, calling, Adventism, Christianity actually ever made sense to me. And so for me, it was a natural space to be. For Yvonne sat naturally as well, because a lot of people don't know, Yvonne's been a youth worker most of her life. You know what I mean? When I met Yvonne and we were dating, Yvonne would still be working as a youth worker at a youth club over in Muswell Hill. She used to work for Haringey. So for us, it was a natural fit. You know what I mean? For us, it was a natural fit. And obviously, it didn't go down so well with the Christian establishment, because you know they don't know how to do both spaces.
Yes.
It's like no, you're either going to be one or you're going to be the other. Like, well, you can actually be both. We can be both.
It has to be.
Michael, and it actually has to be. Not everybody's gonna be both.
Yes.
I used to say it like I had a bridge that would cross me from church to culture, you know what I mean? And people in the church didn't know what I did out in the culture. And then I had a bridge that would cross me from culture to church, and people in the culture didn't know what I did in the church.
Yeah.
And so people would be really surprised. I remember when I was at Brixton, and there was this one member, and she was very stuck-up middle class, black middle class, you know what I mean? And like always thought she was better than everybody else, you know what I mean? And I remember doing some work, some major work for Lambeth.
Yes.
I think it was the head of probation. We would talk. I would have the head of probation's number on my phone. We were on first basis, and there was having a Christmas program. Not Christmas program, Christmas drinks and thank you, you know. And they, you know, called me and said, Eddie, listen, we're doing this there. Would you come up to the office? You know what I mean? Their main office used to be around Horse Ferry Road Magistrate.
Yeah.
And they said, would you come? And I'm like, yeah, I'd be loved it. They said, all right, then we'll leave your name at the door. There'll be a tag for you, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay. So anyway, I walked through the door, I turn up, and I didn't know that this person worked worked as a PA for one of the people. And literally when I walked in, I was in the corridor, she walked out, and when I walked in, she literally asked, what are you doing here? Wow. Literally looked at me like, oh, hello, what are you doing here? I said,
I'm serving a sentence.
Then literally at the same time, like her boss walked out and called me by my first name. I called her boss by their first name. And then she was just even more incredulous, like, what's going on? And I just left her there. I'm like, see you Sabbath, man. And I just left her. I walked in and I put on the name tag, and she was like, what are you doing in this space?
In this space, yeah.
What are you doing in this space on first name basis? And I'm like, well, this is my calling. That's what I'm doing in the space. You know what I mean? And for me, it wasn't a kind of thing like I'm trying to pop style on anyone. That's just where that's just where I was. And so in the church community, it was difficult for them at times to like, no, you're either here or you're there. And I'm like, well, no, you can't be both places.
I think it reminds me of Christ. Like, why are you at a tax collector's house? Why are you with the prostitutes? Why are you with those who are serving a sentence? Do you know what I mean? It's the same thing. It's that we have to fill up the whole space in order to make a difference. Do you know what I mean? And that is how I've known you, is to fill up the whole space, and it's necessary. As I said, for one leader, that might not be their full calling, but I do think that it should be part of the calling to fill the full space.
The full space.
Whether or not their personality suits it or not, to work on filling the full space, because Christ filled the full space.
If God gives you a space to fill, go fill it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I used to love that saying in Jamaica. Listen, man, I watch no face, you know. And I was like, yeah, God gives you a space to fill, go fill it, and don't watch no face but Jesus.
Yeah.
But Jesus.
I have a question for you both. What are some of in 27 years, how would you conclude some of your greatest lessons of life and relationships?
How would
you summarize some of the greatest lessons of relationships and how God is working with you, personal growth, all of that?
Yeah, maybe I can sum that up in 3 statements. Just number 1, love isn't static. Number 2, I think that love is a choice, an intentional choice.
You know you're going to have to break these down, right?
We'll break it down. Number 3, that love needs time to grow.
It's too much.
Those are the 3 things that we have learned, that God has taken us on that journey. We are not the same couple that we were when we first got married. And I guess we won't be the same couple in 30 years' time, because love grows. Love is a choice. Life kicks in. circumstances change, and we have to change with it.
We've had major trauma take place in our lives, in health, in finance, in moving, in loss, and we've had to learn how to love each other afresh in those spaces. And so that's why we've come up with that idea that love isn't static. You can't, like, we love the 5 love languages, but the 5 love languages isn't once and for all, amen, go home. The love languages are just an entrance into where you can start. All right, now keep on moving. You know what I mean?
And at every stage,
you're going to grow.
We always have to redo those love languages because we're in a different season in life. And in different seasons, your love language change. Not that your love obviously grows, but when you're going through, I'll just give you an example that even if like if your love language is physical touch, for example, that may work if you're 20 years old. And then if you're going through physical touch may not be your thing at that particular time.
Physical distance.
I'm not.
Physical distance. Man, I need no touch. Give me a hand.
I'm just saying there are different seasons that people go through, and their love language speaks to them in that particular season.
And sometimes the love languages ain't even going to be Chapman's love languages. You know what I mean? I feel like you find your own, and then love needs time to just unfold. Yvonne isn't loving me. She's loving me with the same heart she had in year 1, but she's loving me with a much deeper depth in that heart than year 1. Believe me, because she's loved me way past my love by date. Father, you know what I mean?
You spoke about, I wanted you to expand a little bit on love is not static. So you're saying it's dynamic?
Love is dynamic. Love is continually flowing. Love needs, because remember, love isn't just a feeling. Love is a principal core value that drives life. And that principal core value has to think about how it operates in different spaces. You know what I mean? I remember once I put Yvonne under enormous pressure, and selfishly so. And I was very selfish at the time, and I didn't realize the amount of pressure she was under. Remember when I had cancer? I had cancer the same time Yvonne's gran had a stroke. You know what I mean? Now, Yvonne was raised by her gran. So Yvonne has to deal with the fact that this person who has raised her, has nurtured her, has fed everything into her life. She's just dealing with a severe stroke right now. And then, you know what I mean? Then she turns around and she finds out that I've got cancer of the kidney. And it wasn't that her heart was torn between who does she love the most or where does she place. She had to figure out what that looked like. What she was torn by was my level of selfishness. Like, I need your attention right now. I need, you know what I mean? And I, because it wasn't that I was panicking, but she was under an immense, but I needed a certain level of care at the time, that if I would have just given her a moment to just mentally breathe and figure out how she minds her heart and her time and her depth in order to figure out that love and delve out that love, then I would have been all right. And so I feel that's what I mean when I say love is not static. Love is going to figure out how it loves in each new season. You know what I mean? It's going to figure out how it loves in the season of like spring. It's going to figure out what it looks like in those seasons when we have plenty. It's going to figure out how it loves in those seasons when everything that we've got has literally been stripped away from us and all we have is each other. You know what I mean? Even now in year 2027, in year 25, in year 25, I lost my brother. I lost my job in the same year. You know what I mean? I lost my occupation in the same year, and we were in a foreign country. You know what I mean? And so love had to figure out, we had to both figure out not only how we support each other, but we had to figure out what love looks like in this new season. You know?
And I think we had to be clear on where God wanted us to be and what he wanted us to do.
Because we knew that we were supposed to be here. You know what I mean? We knew that we were supposed to be here. But we had a sense of like finding, we're playing Kung Fu underneath. We're playing Kung Fu underneath.
I'm trying to get that. I'm trying to move the screen. I'm trying to move her screen over one
we're
side.
playing Kung Fu at the camera, you know. But yeah, we had to figure out, I knew I was supposed to be here. We knew we were supposed to be here. This was the first time God spoke to myself, Ria, and Yvonne, you know what I mean, separately, about being here and staying here. And then we had to figure out, well, what does that look like? What does the support look like? What does the love look like? How do we need to extra support each other in this space when we're not going back to the comfort and the support network of all the people that we have back in England, which would have been the comfortable and the easy thing to do. You know what I mean? How do you now work in this space, and how do you figure out the love? So that's why love isn't static.
And the possible and the fact that we didn't hear God clearly say to us, go back to England. If we had, we can't argue with this. Yeah, we clearly heard him say, come here. And so we came here. And then because things didn't quite go as smoothly as we had seen, then of course we were waiting. Okay, God, is it time to go back? Because we'll be ready to go back. But he said no. So he said, stay where you are. And so we stayed. And as Rita was saying,
no regrets.
Rita said no regrets, yes, on a t-shirt.
So in effect, you're saying that love has an intentionality about it.
Always.
Intentionally through seasons.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It believe me, it's not static. It needs time to grow, and it's an intentional choice you have to make. You know what I mean? And the reason why it's an intentional choice you have to make is because you can't force somebody to love you. The gift of love is as sacred as the gift of choice. You know what I mean? Like Curtis could say, I love you, I love you, I love you with the words, but in his heart and his mind, he could say, I'd never love you. You know what I mean? But on the exterior, loving somebody is the most sacred and the largest giving of yourself you will ever give to somebody. And that's why it can never be forced. You can only force somebody to fear you, but you can't force somebody to love you.
Wow.
And it's something that you have to intentionally choose to do. You have to
yeah. Go with it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
No, did you finish what you were saying? Sorry.
Yeah. I was done. Hey,
what are you celebrating the most, or what are you celebrating our tour after 27 years?
Oh gosh.
The joy of still being together. I think, like as Ed said, we've been through many circumstances, good, bad, even indifferent. And I think just seeing that thread of consistency through all of that, that's what we celebrate. We celebrate consistency of love, not the circumstances of love.
Yeah, Yvonne's got this thing. She said that,
not the circumstances of love.
I'm making a note of these great quotes. I'm sorry. You know, when you see me looking down, I'm making a note.
Yvonne said right at the beginning, she said, Ed, listen, no matter what happens, let's stay committed to the commitment. Let's stay committed to the commitment. So our thing has been, you know, no matter what situation comes, let's find our way back to each other. Let's just find. So I feel like in year 27, I'm celebrating the fact that Yvonne still sees value in loving me. In years 27, I'm still celebrating that I see so much more in Yvonne to just stay loving. I'm celebrating that the two of us are figuring out at this stage of our life, brand new, all right, what does loving Eddie look like now in this season? What does loving Yvonne look like in this season? You know what I mean? So yeah, you know, there's still a good amount of road ahead, and and we still want to love into that space. We still want to love into on that road, and the rest of it will take care of itself.
There's a journey.
Wow.
There's a journey which God takes us on.
And you know you love me.
There's a journey in which, and I think that often when young people get married, stay focused.
Get a room.
That they believe that they've arrived at the end of the road, and that's it. We've reached. And I don't think that there is so much more growth to go, that people, if they're not willing to make those changes of growth with each other, getting to understand how other people tick, getting to understand what winds you up, getting to understand what it takes to invest in a relationship, then they've missed that opportunity, and then they make a choice not to move down a different road. And I think
Joyce just asked, how do you find your way back to each other?
Yeah.
In the midst of brokenness.
Sorry, read it out a bit louder for us.
The question was, how do you find your way back to each other in the midst of brokenness?
Yeah.
There's one thing that I'm grateful for that Yvonne and I have, and it's a very honest mechanism that lets us know when we're drifting too far from each other. And I think one of the really important ways, one of the important things that you need within a relationship, especially a relationship that is broken between two people, you need the honesty to know that you're broken. You know what I mean? And you need the honesty to know, is your love and is your heart and is this journey still worth investing in? And it's a serious question, because love knows when love can't help anymore. Love ain't gonna stay there forever. Love knows when, you know, love knows when the only way that it can actually survive is to distance itself from the person who doesn't want to reciprocate that love. Because love is naturally other-centered. It's naturally other-centered. So Yvonne is always loving into me, and I'm always loving into Yvonne. If we come into a place of brokenness and I'm loving into Yvonne, but Yvonne is refusing to love into me, then there is nothing here to build with. There is nothing, especially in marriage. Especially in marriage. You know what I mean? Especially in marriage. Because
there's so much more to lose in marriage, so to speak. When I say that, I always talk about, I think it's Gottman. You've heard of Gottman, haven't you? Yeah, that's your guy, Dr. Gottman. He has this thing where it's never about the winning or the losing in a relationship. It's always about the bargaining power. And I think in relationships, we don't know how to bargain properly. So what we do is we hedge around a question or a statement. So if I want something, I'll do this. I'll say it, PG rated first, and then I'll get to stuff first. So if Ed wants to have a drink with Curtis, he'll never say to Curtis, "Hey Curtis, what are you doing tomorrow? Let's go and have a drink." Because he's afraid that Curtis will say, "Well, actually, I'm busy. I've got to take the kids out," and then Ed's gonna feel offended that Curtis blew him out. Maybe Curtis doesn't. So maybe I won't ask him next time. So what Ed, instead of Ed saying, "Curtis, let's go for a drink tomorrow," and Curtis saying, "Yeah, I'm really busy, but sure, we can make that time," or "I can't do it this week. Let's make it next week." Ed's afraid of being vulnerable in that situation. So he doesn't bargain rightly. He just beats around the bush. So instead of saying, "Let's have a drink," he says to Curtis, "Hey, Curtis, what are you doing tomorrow?" So then Curtis will give this. Then he realizes, "Oh, well, I won't say anything because Curtis is obviously busy." So he doesn't know how to bargain that space with Curtis. And because even in a friendship, there is that much vulnerability in which to to place or that trust or that level of investment in an individual, how much more do you think it is in marriage? So, for example, if a wife comes in, Ed, I'm going to say Ed, it's not personal testimony here, but I'm just saying that if a husband is watching the football and a wife wants to make love, for example, she comes out in this sexy nightie and she goes and stands right in front of the football game. Obviously, the guy says, "Get out the way. Sorry, I'm watching." Yes, move. You're right in the queue. Now, storms off and she'll say,
depends on if it's 0-0. Yeah. It's 0-0 when the game is slow, man. I'll be like,
no, listen. And then
record.
And then of course she'll storm off, slam the door and say, "You're not interested in me." And of course, by the time the game's over, he'll come to bed and wondering why he's getting the cold shoulder.
But there's a way of wooing. Yeah.
There's a way of wooing, exactly. There's a way of wooing. And if she would have wooed him correctly and with the right timing, she would have got what she wanted to.
Yes.
But of course, we don't even know how to bargain in relationships. We often miss the point, and that communication, what I'm trying to tell you, you're not picking up because I'm not bargaining correctly. And that's how it is in relationships.
And it's about, and I think so many think about it from the perspective of loss. You know what I mean? If you get your way, then for me it's loss. Yeah. You know what I mean? And if you get your way, it means you win. And I think in that space of brokenness, I think especially in a marriage, you know, if you're in a place of brokenness, there has to be honesty about where you find yourself. There has to be honesty about what it took for you to get to where you are, and then there has to be honestly a deep sense of, do we have what it takes, you know, in order to get back to where we want to get back to.
So someone's asking, how do we bargain correctly? It's about timing. It's about correct communication, and it's about saying what you want in a way that the other person understands it and hears clearly what you're saying.
So what does that mean? I'm going to do the PG, no PG on it. If you're horny at that time when match of the day is on, what do you do? Put a pause on the horny and then wait till it's finished?
You just do it in a way that he doesn't feel that he's losing out on the football game. Because, you know, they always replay.
Teach us.
You know.
So how does that look?
Women are just as horny as men. There ain't no difference between a woman's horniness and a man's horniness.
No.
It's just a woman just throws her horniness at you at a different way than a man does. You know what I mean?
And sometimes men don't hear, not just saying men, to example, sometimes men don't hear the signals clearly as you want them to hear. So
half time ain't long enough.
And you just have to learn to speak their language.
Yes.
Whatever.
Lee said, do it at half time.
Not long enough.
15 minutes. You can work with 15 minutes.
All right, let's go.
You're on the clock.
It's only going to take you two. Don't even try it, you know?
I thought, did you finish answering? I thought you were giving us an analogy.
Yeah.
I feel like that, you know, love needs work. And when you're in a place of brokenness, it's your ability to love. It's your ability to sustain that love. It's your ability to trust the heart of the person that you love that is under pressure, and that needs work.
But
if the two of you aren't willing, babe, if the two of you aren't willing to go and get the counseling that you need in order to break that, in order to break the brokenness and begin to get foundations that you can build together. If one of you doesn't want to do that and says you're not interested, then you're done.
Yeah.
You're done. You're done.
But it's hard because when you go to anybody who's never done counseling before, it brings up things not necessarily about what's caused this whole incident that's caused you to be in the space that you're in, but it also brings up things from your past, your upbringing.
Yes.
Taught, and that can be very uncomfortable for people, and some people don't want to take that journey in order, you know, we want to be right, but let's just we've talked about it. What do we need to go and see a counsellor for?
Yeah.
You need to. It's funny you say that because I'm the kind of person, I don't like rejection.
Yeah, who does?
But I've and I climb up. Like I will just say, all right, forget it, don't worry about it, and act like it's okay as best I can. And I've learned that it has been. I have to step into the most uncomfortable place to just make the next square on this journey. Just one more step, just to gain that one step momentum. I've had to step into uncomfortable places and say what I think and what I feel. Even if it's something about being horny, I'd have to just say it, which is an uncomfortable thing for me because I've climbed up now.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that is just one tip on answering that question on how we manage that type of thing. I've got another question for you, both.
Oh.
What are we're celebrating 27 years. What are your greatest qualities identified so far in each other? But I guess you're speaking about the other person now.
One quality that I didn't know Yvonne had, and I didn't know she had in year 5, but I know that she has it. I know that it underpins everything about her. Is what Zulus call Ubuntu. Ubuntu, and Ubuntu is South African humanism, and it means humanity for all. And that is one of Yvonne's deepest traits. I am well because you are well. I am full because you are full. You know, I think one of Yvonne's most identifiable, deep, beautiful, identifiable traits is her level of empathy. That's the thing that made me actually, when I came back into the church, I didn't come back in for no woman. I was like, no, Lord, I ain't coming back for no woman. 1990. My friends are telling me you need to find a girl and get married. I'm like, oh, allow that, man. You know what I mean? Because I just come out of a very bad, traumatic 5-year relationship. Then I remember my dad was an alcoholic and he had a stroke, you know, and I remember Yvonne, myself, and Paul Hunt, you know what I mean? Paul Hunt, we went around by my dad's house, my dad's flat. They came with me to just help fix up my dad's flat, clean up the place, you know what I mean? And it was an alcoholic's flat, you know what I mean? And the toilet was really bad. The toilet was really, really bad. And Yvonne, so I said, I'm going to clean up the toilet. I was so embarrassed. I didn't want them seeing that level of, you know, Yvonne went into my dad's room. Paul went into the kitchen to tidy up and some of the front room. Then I remember, you know, Yvonne worked at the hospital, so she came in with all the plastic gloves and, you know what I mean? And I remember her coming into the bathroom, and she had a plastic bag and she had a soiled pair of my dad's trousers. Yeah. And she came in and it was just like nothing. She said, look, Ed, your dad's clothes, they're just no good. Like, he's got a soiled pair of pants there and there's other stuff like that. I'm going to throw it all. She said, but there are two bin bags full of clothes and I'm going to take the clothes home and I'm going to wash. And she was saying it like it was, like she was doing it for her gran.
Yeah.
Like she was doing it for any one of her granddads. And I remember turning away from her, you know what I mean? Because my eyes were starting to fill up with tears, you know. And I said, thanks, Yvonne, that, I really appreciate it. She left. But in my mind, what had happened was, I remember, and it clearly happened. For me, I realized the type of heart that I wanted and the type of love that I wanted in my life. It wasn't so much about what I wanted, it's about what I needed. But because I knew Yvonne liked somebody else, Yvonne now became the standard, because in my heart, I was like, that's the person that I need. That's the type of empathetic love that I need in my life. And so Yvonne, for me, became the standard. I'm like, all right, whichever girl comes to talk to me, if she don't have that type of heart, bunner, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I ain't. So I think in year 27, I think the thing that I celebrate the most about Yvonne is a empathetic heart. The other thing that I celebrate about her is her just continued work ethic and the excellence that she brings to her work. You know, her work ethic is just so brilliant, so deep. You know what I mean? Her capacity to absorb so much life and so much responsibility and then push it all the way back out there, you know what I mean? And do it excellently. I really do. I celebrate. And then, and I've said it before, you know, the level of love that she finds for me, and the level of patience in her love that she finds for me with where I find myself in my space right now.
Yeah, I should get you my CV for me.
I'm gonna.
You could be.
I was just looking at Yvonne's face. It was just so beautiful. It was like she just came off Mount Sinai. It was just lit. It was yellow like the sun, just glowing.
With any big stories with it.
You don't need no big stories.
Ed has a great sense of humor. Often you'll see some of the pictures that we will post and we're always laughing. Because those are genuine moments of laughter. You know, even sometimes when I think about the times when we are laughing together, it actually makes me cry again with laughter because there've been such deep belly laughs. It's just, that's no silence. I'm not gonna say that. No.
Way back in the day, man.
Gosh,
way back in the day when y'all used to put the lip gloss on. You know what I mean? Vaseline thing, and I was like, babe, how much Vaseline you gonna put on your lips there, man? I'm like, man, you got fried fish Vaseline on your lips. Fried soul chicken,
fried soul fish.
Babe, don't kiss me, man. We're just gonna stick all.
Ed has a great sense of humor, and a man of integrity. Whether he's in the good times or the bad times, this man maintains his integrity throughout. And I've got to say, that's been one of the stabilizing forces in our relationship. Yeah. Those are the two. That still sound for them. He's playing so good.
No matter, you're married.
You ready for this? You ready for this?
Yes. We're too young.
You're too young for that.
We're too young, but we'll groove anyway.
The beat is.
That's the rarest of the rare. We came just before that.
The beat is silky, man.
Birthday this week had me in all kind of different moods, man.
That's gonna make you get a room. Listen, I wanted to ask you guys, because you cancelled us.
Yeah, let's lay it out.
You cancelled us 19 years ago.
18 years.
19 this year. 19 years ago.
I remember when you first came to me with his name.
Yes. I came, and I came to you, Ed, because you resemble my dad.
Yeah.
A better looking version, but you resemble my dad. And I think you were all what I hoped he would have been. Do you know what I mean? But you were too young to be my dad. So it was kind of a weird one. It was like an uncle, dad, brother. And the relationship was meshed into like 3. Do you know what I mean? But it was like that. And I felt that it was important. There was no elder man in my life that I could bring a name to and say, what do you think about that person? So I remember we were just doing some work and together. And then I said to you, there's somebody that I'm thinking about and I still think about. And, we discussed him and stuff like that. And you kind of gave me the go ahead. You know what I mean? Yeah. From a man's perspective.
Let him come to you. Yeah. I remember I told you, let him come to you.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
So all this was going on in the background?
All this was going on in the background. And Ed said, hold on one, don't do nothing. Let him come to you. Yeah. And it worked. You get me?
I came.
He came.
Curtis, Juanita. So I was giving Curtis a good reference, while Ed was also giving you a good reference on the other side. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, so you guys have made a, you know, you guys are very instrumental in our journey, in our union, and we always only give you respect for that and love and thanks, because the union has been the best thing in our lives. You know what I mean? We're together for a reason. In good and bad times, we recognize that this union was made solid in heaven before it was made solid on earth. My mom had a strange dream the other day. She said, "Oh, I dreamt that there was some beautiful piano music playing, and mom and dad was there, and you was a child. But when I look in the room, it was Curtis. But Curtis was a man, and you was a child." And I said, "Mommy, I don't know what it means, but just say it was written." Do you know what I mean? It was supposed to be. But one thing you guys counseled us on, and you were very frank, and you were very open with us. And it taught us a lot of lessons that we still bring into life now. A lot of that was about being transparent, building together, growing together, and working together. Now, there are married, single, other divorced people who listen to our live IGs here. What word would you have for either category? Just choose one. Maybe because you saw us in the premarital stage, maybe a word for the singles. What would you say?
I would say, and had a discussion with somebody the other day. So I remember years ago I was going through a relationship, years ago, long before Yvonne, in my other life, and listening to talking with my mom, and she's saying, "What's happening? How are you? How are you? Don't walk in. What wrong with you? What going wrong in the relationship?" And I was saying, "Well, mom, I'm putting my 50%, and she's not putting her 50% because I've been listening to Teddy Pendergrass. You know what I mean? You know that song? It's so good, love somebody, loves you back." And then he says in that part of the song, not talking about 70-30 or 60-40. Talking about a 50. I'm like, yeah, man, I'm putting my 50% in. And my mom, when I told my mom that, I didn't tell her Teddy Pendergrass, I just, the philosophy. Mama, what kind of stupidness you talking there, boy? Are you putting 50% in and expecting the love to work? It's 100% you have to put in. You know what I mean? And I'm only using that analogy to make the point for singles especially. You are already a whole person. I know that within our church environment, or even within society, we have taught this false idea that unless you're with somebody, you're half a person. We believe in the biblical narrative, and in the biblical narrative, God created two whole people and gave them to two whole people. And those two whole people continue to create a whole, but without each other. So the whole idea of it's not good for the man to be alone, it's not so much it's not good for the male man to be alone, it's not good for humanity to be alone. Humanity has figured out, hold on, everybody's got an equal, where is mine? Everybody's got, but they had to be two whole people. And so saying this, remember that you're a whole person. You're already a whole person. You know what I mean? You don't need no woman to make you a whole person. You don't need a man to make you a whole person. You need another human being to make sure that that wholeness has place to express itself. So if you're in a relationship, express your wholeness there.
What's that? You got snakes in it. Snakes.
There's a tarantula. What's going on?
But you know what's happening? Do you know they go into the light and they die? Do you know? You know when I used to use the Hoover thing the other day? There was like about 50 of them dead in the bottom of them. My light is a light killer. You are already a whole person. Live within that wholeness. Be whole. When you're in a relationship, be whole. We are two fiercely independent, beautifully independent people living and growing and journeying together interdependently. but God values our independence. He values our independence, and he wants our independence to find greater expression in our interdependence.
Wow.
You know, the word that I want to give you, man. You're already whole. Be whole. And don't make no man come to you who ain't whole. Don't make no woman step to you who ain't whole. Or at least ain't on a journey to celebrating who they are and growing in who they are. I believe, you know, there is no perfect person, but there is perfect potential. You know what I mean? But that potential only becomes great when that potential decides that it's going to work and build. Yes. Otherwise, all you're just marrying potential for the rest of their life. No, potential has to be realized. Yeah, potential has to be realized, and the potential has to be worked on and in the process of working. You know what I mean? That's what Yvonne saw in me. You know what I mean? That's what Yvonne still... You still see that in me, innit?
Still got a long way to go.
I know. I've got a long way to go.
I keep telling you that.
Work in progress.
We're all,
so,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're a work in progress.
Yes, I'm nearly there.
Right, because we ain't got much time, can we do...
She hasn't done it.
Yeah, Yvonne, can you do married folk, a word for the married folk? We've got limited time.
We've got, say, 6-7 minutes.
All right, then.
Okay, I won't take 6-7 minutes, but you can wrap up in that time. In terms of my thing is, once again, remember that love isn't static. Take time to grow with each other. Each and every day you make that intentional choice in your marriage to choose to love this person who you...
That's it.
Right? Have you got another question?
No.
That was it. That
was it.
Yeah. Remember that it's not static.
It's not static.
It needs time to unfold.
It needs time to grow and unfold, and it's an intentional choice each and every day. Love doesn't just happen by chance. It actually makes you make a choice, and then you move with that choice every single day.
Yes, I love that.
Let's take some time to come down, because I must say, for me, I've enjoyed this moment so much, and it is deeply honourable to just be... You were there from day one. And although we've had a lot of time apart, you're still there. I just want to put something out to Yvonne. I mean, Yvonne, every time I'm around you, I feel transparent. I feel like you're looking through me. And you got this way about you that just... You stand there with a smile, but I know you just can see... You got X-ray vision going on. I'm like, but now I'm more of a...
I'm grown now.
Yeah. I can take it now. But it was really to say that I know that you're a great example of being very conscious and thoughtful about people. And as much as that might have been a vulnerability for me, I now, in my maturity, see it as it's something I've picked up for my own self, and I appreciate that you have that consciousness you have. I've adopted some of it. So whilst we've been away from each other, I've picked up things subconsciously. And Eddie, your hustle for life, the way that you just go for it. And I didn't even know a lot of this stuff. And I know there's a lot more to know, but I didn't know a lot of what you guys have been through. And I know that this particular episode has not shown everything, of course, but your hustle for life has been inspirational. And just talking to you made me get up and start writing business plans and whatnot. You know, so you're impressing on us without even trying.
I would say that this has been like a counseling session for us 19 years later. And we have experienced even growth in the way you're teaching it. Do you know what I mean?
Different.
We've picked up different gems, we've picked up different ways of living for the next couple of chapters on. So I'm glad that we can see the growth in you, that you're not the same people that counseled us 19 years ago. We're not hearing the same stuff. We're not hearing the same lessons. We're hearing new lessons, and that shows that you yourself have been growing. If you told me and Kurt the same stuff that you told us 19 years ago, it'll be like, well, then in my mind, once we shut off this, where was your own personal growth? So your personal growth for us is dynamic. Do you know what I mean? And that dynamic feature of your own personal growth just keeps feeding into us year after year after year. And I'm so glad that you haven't stayed where you were 19 years ago. You give us hope for us moving to 27 years. You give us hope for us going to 50, because you're keeping it moving, literally.
Yeah.
We thank you for that.
I mean, I want to thank you for what you're doing here in the
big.
culture. You know, I want to thank you for what you're contributing to all these marriages, all these relationships. It's beautiful. You know what I mean? It takes a lot of vulnerability, and it takes a lot of courage for you to be that transparent in the culture. You know, amongst people that you know, and then amongst the other people who don't even know you, but who just click into this space. You know.
So keep living from there, and we will keep living from here.
Yeah,
man. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Just a plug.
Yes, we were always asking you to plug.
Come on, hold the book up. We can't see it. We can't see it.
My second book. You can find this book at my my work website, EYRLTD.com. I'll type it in.
Yeah, you type it in, because I missed that.
YRLTD.com. I decided not to put it on
Amazon.
I decided not on Amazon because Bezos is rich enough.
And
so he settled with his wife for what was it, like $8 billion? He's still the richest man in the world, so he don't need my, you know.
He don't need your money.
Yeah, I will send it to you personally. I will send it to you personally, stamped and sealed from my own hands.
Yes.
So yeah, you can get it there, and some other resources that I've created.
One more thing, Yvonne, we've got about 2 minutes left. Yvonne, we would love to have you and Juanita just do a session.
Yes.
You didn't know that, did you?
But I just go, yes.
The thing is, I have to say this, it's funny, because even if we're all in the same space, the conversation is always between Eddie and Juanita. And Curtis and I will just get on with what we're going to do. We'll have a conversation. But it's all those two talking all the time. They are talking. And Curtis and I can sit down and we can chill, and
you get Juanita now.
But now I get Juanita.
Yeah. Or you can have your son back then.
Yeah. No problem. No problem. You know what? You and I will do one.
Because you do it naturally anyway.
You and I will do one.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward.
Yeah.
That would be a deep one. That would be a
good one.
Week after next.
No, let's not do it. Let's not do it immediately. My plate is here at the moment.
Oh, see, I see.
Zoom and trying to get things online and things like that. It's kind of
give it. Well, maybe week after next, 2 weeks. Give her a couple of weeks and then.
Couple weeks.
Yeah, I've got
20 seconds remaining.
We're trying to say goodbye before it cuts all the way.
Okay, all right. So
20 seconds, 18,
Love you.
Thank you for everybody for joining us. We love and respect you for waking up so early. Love you.
Other than
and well done for waking up so early.
Yes. I know.
Go up until 11. So well done.